Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages over the age of 18, get out. Get out, Aaron Cruz. Get out of my podcast. Apparently he is actually 18, but you don't look at it if anyone's seen
I don't
him.
believe that. He's a child.
Not buying it. It's a fuck boy. It's a fuck child. Actually, that's probably not good.
Don't say it. Nope, we can't say that.
Nope. My apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm not editing it out because this is raw, uncut, uncensored. Oh, yeah. But not as stupid as that terrible first episode of Raw with that fat-ass comedian. Instead, you get this fat-ass comedian. This is the Wrestle Blood podcast. I am Aaron Nix. I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a graphic designer. I'm an artist. I'm many, many things. But ultimately, I'm a man who wants to entertain you. But I can't do it alone. This is the State of Wrestling Address podcast. Every week, we discuss all of the wrestling news up to date as far as we know. So if we've missed something, apologies, but there is a little bit of a time lag in terms of editing, getting this stuff out there. Thank you very much, of course, to all our YouTube subscribers. Now, joining me is Canada's finest, and no better week to have a Canadian wrestling fan on, actually, when we consider the news. Kyle Wilkinson has returned to the podcast. Thanks for getting out of bed and joining us, sir.
It's been too long, but we've done a few things so far. The Royal Rumble, which has brought me back into wrestling just as a whole, because it's the road to WrestleMania, baby. And
you and I see you again.
We've already hit a few bumps in the road on the way to WrestleMania, just on the wrestling road in general.
If you watch Raw, the card didn't even get started for the road to WrestleMania.
I actually had it on. I had it on in the background. I was just sitting here at the computer. It was on, but yeah, I'll be honest, I wasn't paying that much attention.
Boring.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah. Raw is bore, ladies and gentlemen. Right, let's get into the news, because ultimately, if you want to hear about what happened on Raw, SmackDown, and the like, you can check out our YouTube channel. That's where all the content is available. Very close to 200 subscribers, which means free merch. Don't know why I'm rubbing my nipples, but free merch. Oh, suit you, sir. Anyway, so Lars Sullivan got released apparently quite a while back, but we may as well throw in our 2 cents. Lars Sullivan was released. This comes per Wrestling Inc. because we are blocked by PW Insider. I have no idea.
Actually? Oh, shit.
We're legit. And I believe that has something to do with the fact that I called them out on their bullshit clickbait when they were insulting to Becky Lynch's pregnancy or something along those lines. I don't know where it is. I'm not going to dig out the tweet because ultimately I don't care, but somebody's obviously very sensitive over there. Lars Sullivan reportedly no-showed WWE TV tapings before he was released. As noted on Tuesday, it was revealed by Redacted that WWE quietly released Sullivan back in January sometime. Dave Meltzer, surprise, the big old tuna Meltzer noted on the 4wonline.com message board. Jesus Christ.
That was a
professional. About as professional as us at this point. He pointed on this message board that at one point, WWE chairman and CEO really wanted to push Lars. But that changed over time. Lars reportedly no-showed WWE TV tapings before he was released, which was originally reported by Ringside News in December. There's no word on when Lars actually no-showed, but WWE was working a new storyline with him in late October and November before he disappeared from TV for the last time. You might remember that being around the draft period. That's when he was drafted. And then he very quickly disappeared. Lars Sullivan, released by WWE. Not much of a loss, is it, if we're being honest?
No, I'm kind of I don't want to say indifferent because anyone losing their job, but it's unfortunate, especially right now. So, hopefully he does find something. But honestly, it's not that big of a loss. Like you say, he was already sent to, I don't know if it was sensitivity training or whatever for his incredibly racist comments. There was, I don't know if it was actually gay porn or whatever the hell people were going on about. I didn't look too much into it.
Allegedly, he was involved in a gay pornographic movie, which I don't personally have a problem with. But of course, it was very conflicting news because apparently he's a rampant homophobe and also a racist. However, I should point out a lot of these comments, I have to say allegedly for law purposes. We are uncut and uncensored, but I'm not stupid. But at the same time, a lot of these comments were made in the past and didn't seem to correlate with a more modern update. I'm not saying that excuses it in any way. Absolutely. You are culpable and you are representative of everything that you say from day to day, regardless of whether it was 10 years ago or 10 minutes ago. But at the same time, even if you put all that aside, I don't think he really added much to the product. They've got a lot of giants in this company, better ones. I know you're not a big fan of Braun Strowman, but ultimately, what can Lars Sullivan do that Braun Strowman can't? Not much. And Braun Strowman's what, another 4 inches taller than him. You've got Omos coming through with AJ Styles looking like a fantastic heavy hitter. There's a lot of big guys in this company. Drew McIntyre is your WWE champion. Roman Reigns is probably just as hench as Lars Sullivan. You know, there's a multitude of guys who can do the job better than he can. Hell, I'm 6'4" and 350 pounds. If you need some weird looking freak to jump in and just show a few mental lapses and have some rampage episodes, I'll take a paycheck, Vince. Put me in, bro. I'll come out and deck the Lucha House Party once a week.
Give him the hot tag.
Yeah, give me the hot tag, Vince. Hot tag me. I know you don't need the money at this point. Just pay me, bro, innit? But yeah, no, I don't care. Also, in other news, Steve Cutler was released. I believe that was earlier today.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, WWE announced that they have released Steve Cutler. Cutler was called up to the main roster on SmackDown as a member of the Forgotten Sons in April of 2020, alongside Wesley Blake and Jackson Riker. The group was removed from television last June after a controversial tweet from Riker praising Donald Trump shortly after the killing of George Floyd. See, ladies and gentlemen, it's not always the content. Sometimes it's the timing. Cutler and Blake briefly returned to television last December as part of Baron Corbin's Knights of the Lone Wolf faction, which I really would have liked to have seen push more, actually. I thought it was a good idea, but hadn't been used lately. WWE has come to terms on the release of Steve Cutler. We wish him all the best in his future endeavors. Yeah, how long until Blake gets the hoof?
Yeah, really.
If he hasn't already.
It's anyone that gets released, they have that 90-day no compete clause. So he's going to be doing whatever for the next 3 months. Again, hopefully he gets something, shows up somewhere. I honestly wasn't too into the Forgotten Sons when they were in NXT. When they got called up, I forgot about them immediately.
What's Cleve Stutler doing in the Dynamite Zone?
The Dynamite Zone, yeah. I mean,
that should be the Blast Zone, shouldn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's another whatever thing. Like, I don't even remember if he was super talented because I just don't remember the guy. They were called the Forgotten Sons, and he was so immemorable.
That's the problem. Again, he was a good worker, but ultimately, far be it from me to tell people what they should and shouldn't like and what the business is all about, because I'm just a fucking noob myself. But ultimately, one thing I will say is that you kind of have to stand out. And at no point did I ever think, God, that Cutler's good, isn't he? You know, that's why these people get repackaged into big groups. For instance, Shane Thorne, Aaron Cruise's lover. He ultimately is boring. So he was repackaged into the Retribution angle. And now he's old Slapnuts or Slapjack or whatever you want to call him. And, you know.
Jack Slapper.
Jack Slapper. I don't care. And nor should most people watching. And don't get me wrong, I hope that Steve finds a decent job. It's tough. And I know people are going to go on social media and say, oh, how can you release someone during a pandemic, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, but it's not a charity. It is a business, ultimately. And if they haven't got anything for you, you know, it makes no sense. Now, obviously, the releases that happened earlier on last year when the pandemic first hit, that was something more difficult. As I said earlier, timing. Ultimately, that was down to poor timing. She thought, how can you release people in the middle of a pandemic? But if you look actually at the majority of people who were released by then, they found their feet and landed themselves in pretty cushy little numbers elsewhere, or they've been rehired by the company because they were temporary furloughs. So, you know, I'm not going to defend WWE, and I certainly took Vince and WWE to task on this podcast a year ago when they did all these releases, but I'm not going to cry a river for Lars Sullivan. Although I would like to see him at least have a half decent life. I don't want him to be fucking homeless and shat on. You know, social media is just such a fucking cancerous court of a public opinion. But, you know, same with Steve Cutler. You know, obviously he's a different kind of situation. Just as a very quick side note before we move on, what do you think about the fact that Jackson Riker's still on TV? You know, he's the one who came out with a tweet which essentially completely derailed them when they actually looked like they were going to have a half decent push and they were going to go at it with a New Day. He's the only one who seems to be doing anything, despite being, you know, shall we say, an ill-advised political opinionist. And here he is alongside, what's his name? Elias. That's it, that other scrub on Raw. But he's still got a job.
It just goes to show how much, they gave up on Elias, because that he's just an anchor weighing Elias down. Not that Elias was, you know, afloat anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to like Elias. I thought
Elias very boring.
Yeah, I thought the walk with Elias thing when it first started was pretty good, but he turned babyface and it was incredibly bland. His WrestleMania match with Corbin, I didn't give two shits about. and then he was hurt and gone for whatever, and then comes back, and now he has Riker, and I'm like, you made an album, dude. Good for you. Maybe you should go do music full time, because this doesn't seem like the place for you.
Excuse me. I'll tell you what, Kyle Wilkinson, you should be the master of the segue, because I'm glad you announced music, because I want to discuss Bad Bunny. That's a very Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny. So, yeah, performance wasn't great, was it? Let's be fair. And I'm going to go on record right here, right now, and I'm sure it'll upset everybody who believes themselves to be above everyone else when it comes to opinions and music, but Cypress Hill would shit all over this geezer, and arguably one of the greatest Latin acts of all time. I'm just saying. That being said, Bad Bunny earning big money from his WWE merchandise. You might have noticed that WWE have been selling some merchandise for him. Carl's face says it all. It's actually not terrible, to be fair. I think it speaks volumes about their merchandising campaigns that this guy, who has nothing to do with wrestling and has only just come in to, admittedly help bolster, the opinions and also the identity of the company, because he is a huge star, whether I'm a big fan or not. It's ironic that he has better merch than pretty much all the wrestlers. Rapper Bad Bunny is bringing in big money on WWE Shop. It's no secret that WWE is working with the Grammy-winning artist because of his massive reach with a younger demographic, especially within the Latin market, which, to be fair, is a good get. WWE Shop released a line of Bad Bunny merch to celebrate his performance at Sunday's Royal Rumble pay-per-view, and now it's being revealed that the collection is performing better than any of the WWE superstar items. Licensed Global reports that the limited edition Bad Bunny WWE Shop collaboration is currently the best-selling WWE merchandise of 2021 so far. He's early doors, to be fair.
Yeah, it's been a month, but good for him, I guess.
Yeah, the Bad Bunny line on WWE Shop currently features a $30 18 by 24 poster, a $25 youth t-shirt, a $27.99 women's t-shirt, a $27.99 unisex t-shirt, and a $40 full zip hoodie. $40 for a hoodie in this economy? I'm going to get my old man spectacles on for this, but as we've noted, Bad Bunny was training in the ring at the WWE Performance Center in Orlando earlier this week. Following his appearances at the Royal Rumble and Raw, it's believed that he will eventually make his in-ring debut potentially at WrestleMania 37. Stay tuned for more on WWE and Bad Bunny. So his merch selling doesn't surprise me. And of course, all the fucking music marks are going to be like, so that proves it. It was like, well, ultimately, a casual fan is going to buy that. Of course they're going to. If you're a Bad Bunny fan, you're going to buy that. How many Kevin Owens fans in comparison to Bad Bunny fans are there? Like, it's not a competition, is it? Kevin Owens would get slaughtered, even though Kevin Owens is clearly far, far better at his job, especially when it comes to live performances. I'm just saying. Cypress Hill, mate. Cypress Hill for life. And I've seen them live, and they're fucking incredible, and they sing and rap better than he ever will. I'm just putting it out there, man. It's just an opinion. Don't get upset, internet. Bad Bunny at WrestleMania 37. What do you think? Do you want to see Bad Bunny wrestling?
I imagine it'll be him and Damian Priest against Biz and Morrison.
Cut your fucking hair.
Yeah, the fucking little no, that's stupid. But I mean, if he's willing to go through the training and shit, I'll give him a shot. I used to hate when celebrities get involved. You go back to like 2001 when Drew Carey was in the Royal Rumble. You look back on it now, it's hilarious.
I popped in, but I was only 16. But I
would have been
glued
10.
in on the business as much. I was still as mark as you could get for someone of that age. And also the internet wasn't spoiling everything for me on a daily basis.
Like, you look at that, like, I mean, I guess that's an okay kind of involvement, but I don't know, maybe go to Jon Stewart. I didn't like that. That was a little, because it's not like Jon Stewart's going to take a bump.
What about your boy, Stephen Amell?
That's where I was going to the other side of it. Like, he's done some really good stuff, I think. You know, his match at, was it SummerSlam 2015 or 16?
The year that they brought back King of the Ring, King Barrett.
Yeah. I mean, and like Stephen Amell's in the ring now.
Forget about it.
There's a picture of Stephen Amell with CM Punk in a wrestling ring that came out last week. I mean, I don't care about Punk, but that's cool that Amell's still doing things. Don't care. I mean, Stephen Amell came out with Cody when he had his match with MJF, like in his little fucking group of boys. That was cool. So some celebrity involved.
He wrestled. It wasn't All In. It was All Out, wasn't it? When he wrestled Christopher Daniels.
Yeah.
Good man.
And Christopher Daniels is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping
I've trained on and off for 2 years. I can have a match as good as that.
No.
Just saying.
And,
I mean,
and I'm
admittedly,
hoping that
got an
like
advantage on me in terms of look and body, but you know.
we gotta remember Stephen Amell did all his own stuff at Arrow too. Like he's
a legitimate athlete coming into it, and that's ultimately why he got an opportunity, because he's a guy who takes himself, he took the business seriously, and I respect that. I think what makes me laugh is the people who shit on it are the celebrity. Like I love the fact that Bad Bunny is part of WWE's branding and stuff. I just don't want to see him perform live if it's going to be that crap, especially if Booker T's just going to stand there for 3 minutes like that. Like,
yeah, it was bad.
what's the point? Although Booker T looking jacked, black never cracks, son. Man, you look so good, so good. I am not going to look that good at that age. I can tell you that much. But yeah, ultimately, what pisses me off about it is how fans use it as another opportunity to be toxic on social media. Oh, you don't know who Bad Bunny is because you're a fat piece of shit who only listens to Limp Bizkit. First of all, I'm a fat piece of shit that listens to a lot of music. I have not listened to Limp Bizkit regularly since they dropped Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavor War. So up yours. But ultimately, you can shit on things like Limp Bizkit and they're like, oh, they only listen to new metal. And I saw someone slagging off Alter Bridge. I was like, that is unacceptable. You watch your whore mouth. Like, I love Alter Bridge. And
don't you dare make fun of Creed with a new lead singer. Don't you fucking do it.
I did none of that. But ultimately,
I mean, Creed's a bit of a guilty pleasure. So
yeah, I mean, I don't mind Creed. I love Alter Bridge.
100%.
But I also love rap. Like I say, I went to see Cypress Hill. I've seen Watch the Throne live. Like, I fucking love so many different artists, and this ignorance actually spans both ways. If you're going to sit there and say, oh, fucking people don't like Bad Bunny because they're all white and fat wrestling fans. Well, actually, I'm mixed race and I'm fat and I'm a wrestling fan and a wrestler. But also, I find that fucking offensive. I find that insulting. And ultimately, it doesn't fucking matter, and I'll get over it, which is what most people should do when they're offended. But it does annoy me when these people are like, yeah, well, that's because you're white and trash or whatever it is. You're not black, so you don't like rap. It's like, no, actually, I fucking love rap. I fucking love a lot of rap music, hip hop music. I love fucking jazz. I like opera. I like all kinds of different shit. So fuck off putting me in a bracket just because it suits your narrative. That's just as racist as working the other way. It's all the fucking same bullshit conjecture. Grow up. Bad Bunny wrestling, like you say, it's got to be a tag match, and you can't put him out there by himself. Absolutely.
No, God, no.
Right now, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, nah, you're all right. Not because he won't draw enough. Do you know what? Find someone else for the kid to do. Make him a manager. Make him a valet or something. He's obviously a good talker, not on Raw from what I saw, because I thought that segment was trash. I mean, for a guy who's supposed to be oozing machismo and Latin charisma, you sucked. Just saying.
He seemed really nervous. He seemed just like really nervous on camera, which is weird for,
That's fine too, and there's nothing wrong with that. But don't come out and act as if you're some sort of gangster, innit? Wearing a bulletproof vest and all this shit. Like, play up to who you are. If that's what you're going to do, I have no problem with him being on a product. Put him on commentary if you need to. Put him, guest ring announcer. Have as a manager or a valet. But if he can't work and he can't prove himself to work at a certain degree, no, he shouldn't be in the fucking ring. Absolutely fucking not. You can slag, people are going to use this as an excuse to say, yeah, well, Stephen Amell was in it. Yeah. Have you seen Stephen Amell? Shredded. He's a beautiful man and he works so hard and he could bump and he could sell his ass off. No offense, I've not seen anything about Bunny. He looks like he weighs literally as much as a bunny. I'm sorry, but there's nothing physically impressive about him at all. And obviously, I would expect The Miz and Morrison to whip his fucking ass in a fight because they actually, particularly Morrison, a little bit less maybe in terms of The Miz, especially right now. But still, these are two very capable guys who have been wrestling for decades. Why am I supposed to believe at any point that this idiot should be able to even fucking comprehend the idea of a fight with these guys? Not really. Not unless he's going to shank them. And ideally, that's probably not a good thing for TV either. Although, if they're on Impact, probably could get away with it because they do a lot of shady shit in terms of murder and stuff, innit? Just saying Impact. Fucking hell. Their PR department must have a great time. But yeah, ultimately, it is what it is. But I think you're right in terms of the opponents. If I had to put him in a wrestling match, I can't think of anywhere else I'd put him.
Maybe it's not like Miz and Morrison are doing anything.
Put him in a WLC match. That'll do.
I mean, do you recall when we were watching the Rumble and he climbed up on the top rope? The fucker slipped. Yeah, he almost slipped just jumping from the top turnbuckle.
Yeah.
By the way,
people using that as an excuse to, yeah, because it's fucking, yeah, I know. I've got up to the top rope, and shock horror, all 6'4", 350 pounds of me didn't like being on the top rope because I'm not a high flyer. I drop a mean elbow from the second rope. That's about as good as you're going to get from me when it comes to high level, high octane athleticism. A young buck, I certainly am not. I'm more of a Lance Archer, if I'm being honest. But ultimately, if I had to really relate to somebody, I'd actually probably say Kevin Owens is the guy I'd really like to aspire to look like and be like in terms of wrestling. But ultimately, I don't care if it's difficult. Don't fucking get up there. That's not how this works. If you don't know how to do it properly, shouldn't be up there. And literally, if he'd slipped just a little bit more, he could have severely injured himself. And then WWE is going to have one whopper issue on their hands, even if he signed a fucking release clause, because ultimately, you're going to have the world's #1 Latin American artist right now on a stretcher, possibly paralyzed or whatever might have happened, or broken bones. And then all of a sudden, people were like, yeah, well, fucking, wrestling is always going to be a loss here because ultimately, nobody fucking cares about wrestling in comparison to the real world, particularly when you come to the entertainment format that is music and television. So ultimately, these people are going to look at that and say, well, this is clearly WWE's fault. They're clearly negligent. Not look at this dumb rapper getting up on the top rope and fucking almost necking himself. Think yourself lucky that The Miz and Morrison were right underneath you and looking after you. The only thing I will say is at least he sold it. Got mad props for that. Always appreciate a sell, irregardless of who you are. But I'm bored. I'm bored of talking about Bad Bunny. I want to talk about Paige Van Zandt, who ultimately is a lot better to look at in every sense. And not just because Bad Bunny is an ugly man. I don't think he is, but again, Cypress Hill, mate, much better looking as well. Paige Van Zandt has revealed that she has had WWE talks and had a visit to the WWE Performance Center. For those who don't know who Paige Van Zandt is, ridiculously attractive MMA fighter, worked in the UFC, is now currently working for a bare knuckle boxing company, I think the biggest one in the world, as far as I know, and will be making her debut tonight, tomorrow, well, basically Friday night on the 5th. You'll probably be watching this after that, but whatever. Check her out. Also, she has a very exciting Instagram for you young men who are looking to still find yourselves. Former UFC fighter Paige Van Zandt has had talks with WWE and even visited the WWE Performance Center in Orlando. She also is interested in a potential career in professional wrestling. Makes sense, really. Van Zandt, who has been rumored for a WWE run over the years, recently spoke with Chris Van Vliet, who obviously people will know for his Insight podcast. He's a guy who he's kind of like the male Alicia Ratu in many ways, although obviously shout out to Alicia Ratu, who's on this podcast. Paige revealed that she has had talks with WWE and visited the Performance Center, blah, 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 blah. She was asked if she had any interest in working for WWE. She said, I do. I get asked about WWE a lot, and I do feel like it's something I would be very good at because I kind of have the best of both worlds, she said. I was a dancer where I was used to the entertainment and the showmanship side of it, and the combat sports side obviously goes into the WWE. I don't think that it's something that I don't think that it's something that I could do both at the same time, bare knuckle FC and pro wrestling, which is understandable. If you see guys like Jake Hager, for instance, Bobby Lashley, very fleeting MMA careers just because of the demands that wrestling has, not only on the body, but also the time frame. But she says, I feel like I would want to do that 100%. So maybe it's something that after I'm done fighting in a cage and in a ring, then maybe I'll go over to there. But the door is definitely open. Paige Van Zandt in WWE, pretty much in the same mold of Ronda Rousey. She looks like she's got all the tools. She's fucking stunning. She's a specimen physically. She can whip a lot of people's asses. Of course, she doesn't quite have the pull or the draw that Ronda Rousey did, because ultimately Ronda Rousey was the very best women's fighter in the world for a large period of time. Paige Van Zandt can't really ever claim to be that. I can't remember if it's strawweight, featherweight, somewhere around that division. I have watched some of her fights. She's really capable. She's obviously a good fighter. She'd definitely hand me my ass. But ultimately, at the same time, she still has quite a big draw, especially on social media, and she's redonkulously fit, which... Sorry, it's not me being subjective. That's ultimately, or subjugating her, should I say. That's just the facts. And if you're very, very stunning, but also a world-class athlete, you're going to make some money, especially in WWE.
Yeah, especially under Vince's umbrella. Like I haven't followed UFC in years, so I've never seen any of her fights. But I mean, we've seen plenty of crossovers from MMA to professional wrestling.
Mm.
You know, Brock started as a wrestler, went to MMA, came back, incorporates a lot of that. I mean, Taker back in the day, he's always been a big MMA fan and uses a lot of MMA style, like, you know, his strike stuff still had the best looking strikes in WWE
Yeah.
until, you know, his
So Ronda
18th
Rousey came in.
retirement. Yeah.
Ronda Rousey's
Until
strikes actually were amazing, probably because she was legitimately just lighting up Stephanie's baby maker. But you know, nonetheless, I love Ronda Rousey. I don't discredit the appeal of a mainstream athlete or anyone in the mainstream whatsoever. Even someone like Bad Bunny, I know that they have a use in this company, and particularly when it comes to merchandise and marketing. Paige Van Zandt is the kind of where she's got millions of followers on Instagram because. Just look at it and you'll know why. Like, you know, and ultimately she's a really lovely human being. She's really likable, you know, her and her husband, who would actually make a really good film. I'm still waiting for my boy Travis Brown, my fucking doppelganger, to turn up in WWE. I want me some Travis Brown, man. I want to see him wallop Braun's ass. I reckon that'd be fucking sick to see. Those guys are proper hulking units of men. But I would love to see her in there. I'd also love to see Conor McGregor. I would. I think Conor McGregor, especially Conor McGregor, because Conor McGregor won't hold his tongue. You know he'll say something I've seen on the mic and upset so many people, and I'll be there for that content. And it might upset people, but I'll tell you what, it'll draw a lot of viewership. A lot of viewership. Imagine if Roman Reigns gets squared up to by Conor McGregor. Ultimately, Roman Reigns would probably squash him, given the opportunity. Obviously, if he got the first hit in, I mean, Conor McGregor, I'm not going to discount the fact that he could probably hit someone real hard, particularly if they're an old man who tries to steal his pint in a pub. Just saying, allegedly. Allegedly, even though there's footage of it. But at the same time, imagine that. Imagine the level of it would very much feel like the modern day Tyson Austin for me. And I'd like to see it. But yeah, Paige Van Zandt, she's beautiful, she's talented. I'd love to see it. And I also think that she could play the more plucky, happy-go-lucky face version of Ronda Rousey. Because Ronda Rousey initially tried to come in and was like, I'm Ronda Rousey, I'm a nice person. You know, I don't like Stephanie. I hate her just as much as you guys do. But then, of course, you know, especially women's WWE fans, but ultimately anyone who was a fan of women's wrestling, they kind of got hold of that and were like, how dare you just come in and get a push? It was like, well, you can't put her in the undercard, can you? On the WrestleMania kickoff show, we've got Ronda Rousey versus Alicia Fox. No, you put them where the money is, the draw. And also find me somebody who has come in and had a better debut. Because that debut against Triple H and Stephanie with Kurt Angle as a tag team partner, not only was all the build-up gold, but the fucking quality of the match was actually brilliant. And they went like a good 20 minutes, half an hour.
It was the best match on the card.
Did you hear the
apart from
explode when she squared up to Triple H and started fucking getting ready to fight? Holy shit. The stadium was like, oh my God, she's going to cook his ass. People were losing their minds because, hate to break it to you, lads, a lot of women can actually kick men's asses. That might be a surprise.
I am invincible.
What? I have a penis, therefore anything with a vagina surely could not represent me in a fight. Yeah. Shock horror. I've had my ass handed to me by women at wrestling training. Shout out Astrid the Viking, you fucking sexual beast. She'll whoop my ass. And I'm proud of it too. Why not? I think that's fucking cool. Yeah, no, I'm all for it. I'm here for that kind of content. And also, she's fresh and she's exciting. And it's almost like a kind of, you know, a ready-made thing, isn't it? Instead of having to build up a diamond from the rough, which is good as well from NXT, I'm not going to discredit the fact that you could give this woman a lot of time, and she could just almost come in and just kind of leap over many of the hurdles that would be presented for an issue. And obviously that's the argument. People are going to say, why should she do that? Why shouldn't she? UFC fight, MMA. Obviously, she needs to get into a ring and train with the very best. Look at the amazing plethora of women in NXT alone. Who wouldn't want to see Paige Van Zandt versus a heel Rhea Ripley? Or even Paige Van Zandt having to turn heel to take on Rhea Ripley because Rhea Ripley's like, what are you doing on my turf? This is my fucking house, not yours. That's got money written all over it. Never, ever, ever, ever look a gift horse in the face. I'm not saying Paige Van Zandt looks like a horse because she's well fit in it. Speaking of money, WWE reported record financial results for 2020. Now, a lot.
No way.
Yeah, I know, right? Shock horror. This is your opportunity to have a go at Vinnie Mac. So WWE has announced their fourth quarter and full year 2020 financial results. I won't go into it for too long because I appreciate nobody's listening to this for numbers. Noting that the company achieved record results for the year. While quarter four revenue was down 26% to just 238.2 million. God, what a failure.
Wow.
Yes. Overall revenue for the year was at $974.2 million, which represents an increase of 1%. 1%! I'll tell you what, we'd all like 1% of 974 million, wouldn't we, ladies and gentlemen? We'd all be very happy with that. WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon touted how WWE has continued to produce live content in new ways and the COVID-19 pandemic, and I quote, during the fourth quarter, we continue to produce live content in new ways, which successfully increased audience interaction and engagement, said Vince. As we continue to adapt our business to the changing media environment, we completed an important agreement to license WWE Network content to Peacock. The reason we haven't covered this as a main story is because it was a couple of weeks ago, and I felt like everyone knows by now, but ultimately Peacock has bought the WWE Network. An important agreement to license WWE Network content to Peacock, which we expect will expand the reach of our brands and enhance the value of our content. It was also noted that WWE officials expect restrictions related to the COVID-19 spread, specifically the cancellation, postponement, or reduced capacity of ticketed live events to continue at least through the first half of this year. So basically, WWE is doing very well financially. So sorry if you love Tony Khan that much. Doesn't look like WWE is going to get the hoof just yet. Obviously, just quickly tied in with that, like I said, Peacock, which I believe owns NBC and is...
NBCU owns Peacock.
Oh, okay, NBC owns Peacock. So basically, it'll be under the NBC umbrella.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's like... It's not as easy as this company owns this and that's it. It's a this company and then outsources it to different companies and so on. So it's like a pyramid, basically. Imagine a pyramid. There's NBC, and there's Peacock, and then there's all these little companies and whatever. And obviously WWE Network will go right in there underneath Peacock. Essentially, they sold it for I think $1 billion, and the idea is that it's going to fall under their umbrella of streaming and television services. And of course, they have access to millions, tens of millions more than WWE has. And I think the hope is that that's going to bring and drive a lot more in terms of volume of people towards their product. So if you factor that in, if that is going to be the case, as they hope, and you factor in the fact that they've made a 1% increase on their financial profits over a year, especially in a year where there's been no ticketing really, there's been no fans as there since March of last year. So if you factor all that in, if fans come back in, especially in their droves, and you've got to think there's going to be a fair amount of hunger to get out there and really see some live events and stuff, people are going to be excited to watch live wrestling regardless of what it is. It looks like WWE is actually in a really strong position. And that's not me saying that as a WWE fanboy. That's just me assessing the facts that are in front of me. WWE making a lot of money, and also the Peacock deal. Any thoughts, mate?
I'll go to Peacock first. As far as I know, this is just in the US, so I don't think it's going to affect, it won't affect me. I'll still be able to affect the WWE Network through my cable provider, which is good. It's honestly the only reason my mom keeps cable around, just because I watch that. But I mean, whatever. NBC has such a huge reach. I'm pretty sure. I mean, they're the national broadcasting company. I think they're available in all 50 states, which just opens up the market so much.
And it's going to be half the price as well.
In the long run, yeah.
Yeah, in the long run. Obviously, it's going to take time to transition to that, but eventually you're going to be able to get the network for $5, and chances are they'll probably tie it in with everything else that they afford as well. A bit like a kind of Hulu package, or I think over there as well, you have you get Disney Plus, but you also get ESPN Plus and stuff like that tied in, or at least in America they do. Obviously, you're part of the Commonwealth, sir, so you retain a certain amount of pride for being under the United Kingdom's banner. I'm not a nationalist by any chance, so please do not fucking light up my comments with abuse, because I could not care less about that bullshit. But ultimately, I'm sorry, I cannot see how this is a bad thing. And I love how people are taking to the internet. They're going to sell the network. They're fucked. Vince is just making as much money as he can before he dies. Actually, no. And if they even get a small percentage of the slice of audience that they could potentially achieve from working through Peacock, holy shit, they're going to have a lot of people watching their product. They really are.
Yeah. For the record, Vince is in better shape than most of the people complaining that he's going to die soon anyway. Just gotta throw that out there.
Yeah, he is in his mid-70s. Like,
And he could still crush my head between his arms.
I thought you were going to say he's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
But then
whatever. It's a free world. It's an open world. People can do whatever they wish. And if you want to be crushed by Minimax thighs, I fully understand. Watch out for them grapefruits, mate. That's all I'm going to say. I reckon his grapefruits will get you before his thighs do, to be fair. I bet I think that's why he walks the way he does, because he can't actually close his legs for the size of his grapefruits. I'd very much like to ask him that personally.
That's how the strut started in like 90.
When we had Vince McMahon on the podcast, do you think we should get him back on?
I mean, there's so many questions we could ask.
Mate, I'm gonna have to get a suit and on for that.
Yeah.
Especially now we're doing it on YouTube. So, that means I'm gonna have a shave as well. Terrifying. I like looking like a Swedish mountain climber. A fat one, but albeit a Swedish one.
Coming back slowly but surely.
You are actually. You're looking quite dapper, quite handsome at the moment. If we can just verge onto the man crush. But yeah, any other thoughts on that, mate?
No, I mean the Peacock stuff is what it is. But going to like the whole financial year, I mean, of course they made a lot of money. Like you do have to reference the fact that they did let go like 50, 60 people. So that's depending on the varying amounts of they were making. That's saving some. They're saving some by not producing house shows, but still, network subscribers, merch sales, all that kind of stuff. So they were bound to make money. But
they are also, to be fair, losing a lot of revenue in other places. On-site merchandise, on-site ticket sales, fan interactions like access and things like that. So actually, when you factor in, like for instance, I know it's not technically on the same level anymore, but WrestleMania 17 drew $60 million in profit for the company alone, just that one night. And now that was admittedly over 1 million pay-per-view buys. I imagine that they probably make more money now from things like streaming revenue and stuff like that. And obviously their streaming would have gone up tenfold as well. Like, this is what makes me laugh when people are like, yeah, AEW is coming from. It's like, dude, like Bad Bunny's like, people were saying like, this is the impact of Bad Bunny. His YouTube video, there's like, it's 400 million views of him literally just jumping off the top rope for 10 seconds. Like that's the reach WWE has. And also, I love the ignorance of it. It's the world, okay? It's a universe. That's what WWE claims to be. In Britain alone, the amount of people, think about in India. I think it's like 24 million people watch WWE programming in India alone. And people are going to say, well, yeah, because there's 1 billion people over there. And also, I'd just like to point out to them cunts, okay? India is a really impoverished country. So the fact that 24 million people in a country of that kind of magnitude and that kind of degradation in places, the fact that they can tune in and find WWE and watch it so passionately speaks volumes. And don't forget, WWE NXT UK, NXT Japan will be taking place as soon. I imagine once COVID's gone, NXT Japan will kick in, NXT India will kick in. They have an international reach that AEW, frankly, has no chance of gaining because WWE has already stuck their claws in everywhere they need to go. It is what it is.
WWE has Bad Bunny. AEW has Shaq.
I mean, actually, I think Shaq is a bigger celebrity. Yeah, I said it. Oh, they got Snoop Dogg as well. By the way, Cody Rhodes' new music sucks, doesn't it? It's not good. By the way, mate, Sasha Banks got it first. So you're just playing back up to Sasha Banks, Cody. Sorry, mate. And I like AEW. Not all of it. I mean, I still think Pac is the best wrestler in the world. Push this motherfucker for the love of Christ, or I swear to God, I'll kill you. I swear to God, if within a year Pac hasn't got a sniff of the world title again, bollocks to you. At some point, we have to question that. Let's talk about international relations in wrestling, shall we, Mr. Wilkinson? Let's talk about your borders. This is our final major news. This is our final major point of newsworthy topic, I suppose, or discussion. Canadian independent wrestling issues. They want people to talk about them. They want people to recognize them. I've got no problem doing that because I have a lot of love and respect for a lot of these people. And I know you do, especially being such a huge fan of Destiny that you are. And I'm a huge fan of Destiny as well. And I've streamed some of their stuff and I love it. And frankly, I've got all the time in the world for our Canadian brethren. And also, let's not forget, Bret Hart is my favorite wrestler of all time. So Canada, you have my money for life. So...
well, your money's worth a lot more than our money.
It's called the loony. I'm just going to say, trust me, mate, our fucking money is going down a tip as well. Do not put any money in British stocks and shares, right? I'm just saying, Boris Johnson is going to fucking run this country into the ground. Gabriel Fuerza, I don't know how well you know this individual. He had plenty to say about the Canadian independence scene. And we'll get into things after this, but I'm going to read the quotations of the stuff that's here in front of me. So feel free to skip a bit. There will be timestamps obviously available if you need to jump to where you want to hear us talking about things. He put out a tweet. He said, "Don't talk down to us. We don't need motivation. We need a chance." And he wrote this: "I am ferociously proud of Canadian wrestling. We have one of the best scenes in the entire world with 1/10 of the exposure at best. If you don't know, Canada is home to some of the absolute best wrestlers in the world, like Josh Alexander, Ethan Page, and Mike Bailey. We have creative powerhouses like Vaughn Vertigo, great name, and Holden Albright. We have natural phenoms like Mark Wheeler, Judas Icarus, and Brent Banks, high flyers like Aiden Prince, technical wizards like Tyson Dukes. We have powerhouses like Tyler Colton and Jessie V, fantastic women's wrestlers like Alexia Nicole, Jodie Frett, and Addie Starr, who I've actually seen. She's fucking fantastic. I love Addie Starr. Tag teams like TDT, Space Pirates, and the Dark Order." I really like the idea that they're a combination of the two. It's
Actually,
Space Pirates and the Dark Order.
Space Pirates are actually phenomenal. I saw them at A1 Wrestling.
My video game of the Space Pirates and the Dark Order. That's money. I want that right now. I'll pay money for that, boys. In fact, I'm a graphic designer. Please let me do your merch. I have so many great ideas. Yeah, I know that there's two separate entities, obviously. Yeah, he also says charismatic supernovas like RJ City, who's fantastic. Great tweet again there, boy. Mike Rollins, no relation, by the way. And Pretty Ricky. We have big men like John Greed. That he sounds big. And that is just scratching the surface. We have talented referees, passionate promoters. We bust our asses just to tiptoe over the border to get a little bit of the exposure that Americans take for granted. Take a breath. It goes on, of course. Now, I was expecting this gorgeous man to have his say, and he did. Joshua Alexander, with his follow-up, he said, "Yes, if you want something bad enough, regardless of circumstances or roadblocks, you'll work your ass off and persevere. While stuck in Canada, I worked harder and made myself the biggest name in Canadian indie wrestling." These
True.
are facts. I main evented the biggest shows against active wrestlers for WWE, Ring of Honor, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact, and more. Guess what? I still sat around for 4 years waiting for someone to take notice. Any wrestler that says just hard work and everything will fall in place is living a fantasy. I can absolutely agree to that in my very, very brief flirtation with this business. The reality is it takes a certain amount of luck. Right time, right place, or whatever you'd like to say. I was fortunate enough to have someone see me at the right time. But that goes for anyone, regardless of border issues. It took Eddie Kingston 18 years. Eddie Kingston, one of the most talented guys ever. I love the Canadian scene. I'd like to help get guys like Judas Icarus, Heavy Metal, Tyler Colton, Mark Wheeler, Junior Bonito, etc. noticed. Just use every show as an opportunity. Never phone it in. You'll never know who's watching. In closing, none of this is me complaining. I've made many mistakes that stifled my career's upward trajectory along the way. I was lucky and learned from those mistakes. However, due to those mistakes, I spent 16 years in this community and love it for its good and even bad qualities. Everyone is working hard. People's perspectives of what hard work is may differ. I'm not telling anyone to just work harder. Be honest with yourself and do your best. I always told my students, as long as you try, I can't say shit. Effort is everything. Whether you think that's getting a salad instead of fries or doing the Gotch Bible 7 days a week. I'll put my Survivor Series Team Canada against any country. The scene is great. Anyone who says differently is wrong, bitter, or ill-informed. He also quote tweeted that with a fact. Canada has less wrestling exposure than the United States. Fact. It is a far tougher road to getting noticed being a Canadian. I don't care how many subs at Smart Mark Video has. Fact, we have many bitter members of the community telling up-and-comers it's too hard and you'll never make it. Alexia Nicole chimed in. If you don't follow this woman, you should do. She's fucking amazing. It amazes me that some American wrestlers don't see the advantage they have over Canadians. We work just as hard, if not harder, to get our names out there and hope that at least one of the 4 biggest wrestling companies in the world, all of which are US-based, will see us. And don't even get me started on the career risks some of us have taken to do American indies. Plenty of US wrestlers have been getting signed right now, and it's really exciting and cool and makes me happy to see. But to dismiss every other wrestler in the world that literally can't travel or wrestle in their own country during a pandemic as being lazy is incredibly dumb. Mike Bailey also chimed in. There are more spots than ever between the major US wrestling companies. Living outside the US is already a big hurdle when it comes to obtaining one, and that is only made worse by the pandemic. But this doesn't mean we aren't quietly working harder and hungrier than ever. Gabriel Furtzer also, I noticed, put out this tweet. This is the last one I will mention. He said, hey, if you want to call it whining or complaining, that's cool. I don't really care. But if someone badmouths Canadian wrestlers, I'll be there to defend them. I care a lot more about my scene and Canadian wrestlers than I do about your opinions of me. They have every right to have a bee in their bonnet because a lot of American wrestling fans, even British wrestling fans, won't be able to relate to this because we've got a very powerful scene that makes a lot of money. Although the British independent scene is in tatters at the moment, there isn't that many places to go, but still more than Canada. You need permits to work. People think, oh, Canada's attached to America. To put it in context of our British listeners, Scotland is obviously is the northern border of England, okay? And we also border Wales, as you guys will know. And Northern Ireland is part of Great Britain too. But that's the thing right there. They're part of Great Britain. So you can travel freely between those places, and you don't really need a passport. You certainly don't need a permit to work there. Say the pandemic's gone, right? In a moment's notice, I can jump in my car, go out to Scotland, get a job, find a house, whatever, and live in Scotland. You can't do that if you're American and go to Canada or vice versa. Now, obviously, as an American, you haven't really got to worry because you've got access to all the scenes already. AEW works in America. NXT is in America. There are a multitude of indies who can still work, GCW has been performing shows. Loads of different companies to work for. Canada also, from what I can tell, Carl Wilkinson will probably help me out and have more of an insight in this, has stricter regulations when it comes to COVID-19 and how people operate and work within those parameters. Entertainment has kind of, the thing is as well, Canada kind of operates as one unit, whereas America, obviously, with so many different states, each one actually kind of operates themselves. There are different rules in place. There's a lot to this, but the long and short of it is, after a very long-winded intro, and I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen, is ultimately, if you are a Canadian wrestler, it is tenfold more difficult to get work outside of Canada. And when you are in Canada, there simply isn't the strong scene. And people assume, because there are so many world-class Canadian wrestlers, that, oh, Canada must have, hundreds of independent promotions. It doesn't even have its own NXT or its own WWE format. And actually, WWE doesn't visit Canada nearly as much as you would think. It's almost on a par now with how much they visit us in Britain. And I'll tell you what, it would cost a lot more effort and time to get over here and do shows than it would to do, say, 6 or 7 Raws in Canada. There aren't opportunities available. Carl Wilkinson, you're Canadian. You're very passionate about the Canadian scene like I am, even more so. We love Joshua Alexander. We love Ethan Page. We love Speedball Mike Bailey. Alexia Nicole. We love so many of these incredible talents. RJ City is a particular fan. We're particularly fans of him as well and his Twitter game. Canada has such a deep-rooted sense of passion and identity in everything that we see in wrestling everywhere across the world, even in places like New Japan. How does it make you feel? And also, how would you like to address what you've seen from the wrestlers themselves?
I mean, just gotta say it. They're right. I mean, I can think of 3 independent promotions in the province of Ontario. Provinces are like states for anyone who doesn't know. Like we do have at each
or counties, if you're a UK listener.
Yeah, they do. We do have like the federal government, obviously, like the prime minister, but each does still have provincial. So, we have a premier and he decides what the province does. And our premier now does have Ontario shut down. I mean, most provinces do because we all want to try and bring COVID down. So, of course, the travel is going to be difficult. And it makes it harder because our province is on total lockdown. You go out for emergencies or exercise only. Like, you can't go anywhere, no gatherings. So, especially in Toronto, where Destiny is based out of, well, Mississauga, heaven forbid you mixed up the two. Any Canadians listening, I'm sorry, there is a difference. Please don't knife me. You're in a scary place. The GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, it's a really scary place.
The GTA.
And it's the
Give
Greater
me
Toronto
some of
area.
that. Oh, Canada. As if I couldn't love Canada enough. Now all of a sudden you've got an area called GTA. I'm so happy right now. I reckon there's loads of geezers walking around pretending to be Franklin and Trevor right now.
Oh,
That's
100%.
so sick. I can't
100%.
imagine Canadians taking such umbrage with somebody that they'd stab them. I don't think that was even plausible. Like that meme I shared of you with the Borg. We would kindly appreciate if you would allow us to assimilate you. Like Canadians are world renowned for their kindness and their maturity.
And I think that maturity shines in all of these people's statements. I'll take Josh Alexander, for example.
Oh my God, he's so well spoken. I love you, Josh. Please come on this podcast. Can I just say as well, quick aside before you get into it, if somehow, if you're a Canadian wrestling fan, I know that Nails will probably watch this. Please tag the Canadian wrestlers in our tweets. Please let them know that we are more than happy to have them on this podcast, not just because I want to hear them talk about this scene or whatever. I actually love these people, and I feel like this is another platform. Even our tiny little pokey audience would love to be exposed to some of their talent. I genuinely love these people. I want them to know that WrestlePlug is available for them. They can come on here and they can plug their merchandise. They can talk about their careers. They can share their thoughts if they want or don't want to. Ultimately, this podcast is about furthering the development and the exciting careers of wrestlers all around the world, not just big stars. You know, we've been lucky. We've had some decent stars on here, NXT Tag Team Champions, NWA Television Champions. This podcast and this platform is available to everyone, and especially Canadian wrestlers. If you want to air grievances, you can, but ultimately, I'm more interested in just letting more people know how fucking incredible you are as talents. Please continue, sir.
I mean, I could echo those sentiments entirely. I would love to listen to that.
And if you don't trust me, Kyle will interview, I'm sure.
Oh Christ, that'd be terrifying.
Just put that on your shoulders. There you go. Kyle's going to interview Joshua Alexander when he comes on.
That'd be terrifying. But again, let's focus on him for a moment. When he says he waited 4 years for someone to notice, and in that time, he's wrestled Pete Dunne 3 times. He's wrestled, people scoff at this, but he's wrestled Marty Scurll at least twice. You know, pre-circumstances, let's call them.
Still a high-quality opponent in a high-quality situation, irregardless of what happened afterwards.
Yeah, he's wrestled. I don't think he said anything, but Channing Decker. He's kind of like a Canadian Mick Foley. He's just mad. Like, he loves all the death matches and stuff. He's great. But I was there at the Destiny show when Scott D'Amore walked up to Josh Alexander and handed him his first Impact contract. And that was huge. Like, you could see it in Josh's face, and everyone, like, we all stood up. We were standing next to the ring. We were slapping the apron. Like, it was such a beautiful, heartfelt moment. But it took a man that talented 4 years or 16 years, however long he had been wrestling before, to get a shot at one of the big times, because I know people don't consider Impact, you know, a big thing, which they are. Fuck off, you're wrong. Because look at the work he's doing now. And it's unreal that people would think Canadians get it easier. Like, sure, we do have a great country and all that, but our borders to the US are shut down. There is no cross-border moving right now because of COVID. So they can't go down to all those like independent shows. A lot of them, they have to work second jobs. Josh Alexander, I think, does construction or something. I know a lot of them are doing like college, university, school to keep themselves through. And the fact that people would just go, no, it's laziness, frankly, it's just insulting. These people work just as hard, if not harder, just to, if they got the chance to get squashed on a random SmackDown that comes up here, that would be incredible exposure. But you're right, we don't get WWE events. The last one I remember, I think there was a few in 2018 maybe, but like Survivor Series 2016 was in Toronto.
You had those 2 Raws. Didn't you have that Raw where Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens came out and they were heels and everyone went ape shit? And I think that was Montreal. But that's like,
those are in Montreal.
You'll be lucky if you get 1 or 2 Raws a year. And case in point, you know, WWE, you know, as a British fan, I'm guaranteed 2 Raws and 2 SmackDowns every year, because they do normally do a post WrestleMania tour, and then they also do a pre-Survivor Series tour as well, and they always do that every year. So I'm guaranteed probably the same amount of wrestling as you guys are. And when you think about logistically how difficult that is, not saying it's easy to get into Canada, I'm sure WWE has to, you know, deal with certain things, but ultimately when you're that big a company, you know, doors open much easier for you, let's be honest. Yeah, it does stun me. It really does.
But these people work there. Like Ethan Page's promotion A1, it's out of Hamilton, I think, which is pretty close to the American border.
Check out their
But he
YouTube.
also,
There's some content on there and some really good stuff as well.
like, I remember a triple threat tag match. Um, it was, I remember who they were against because God, I was working midnights at the time and I didn't sleep and just drove up to Oshawa the next day, which is about an hour away. So, but it was Ethan Page, Josh Alexander, and Trent Seven. Trent Seven's been over here numerous times. Tyler Bates been over here numerous times. British Strong Style as a whole has been over to Canada numerous times, well contracted to NXT or WWE, however you want to look at it. We get so many big names over here, and yet the people they wrestle still don't get a lot of recognition for it. Which is again, I'm sure maybe Trent Seven or someone be like, "Hey, you should check this guy out sometime," and they're just like, "Nah." And I think that's insane. I think WWE, especially, I don't think we need an NXT Canada. I mean, I wouldn't say no, but I don't think it's necessary so much. It's just having the people just get noticed. It's I don't know how many times I can say it, man, but it's mad. It's insulting that people would assume we can just go up and do things. Like Americans, you're right, because the four bigger promotions are all in the States. Yeah, you don't need a passport to go from state to state. You can do a whole fucking road trip if you want to. No one's gonna stop you. You try and cross the border, especially right now. No, you can't do it. I don't know if personally, I don't know if you need like a work visa to like go from the Canada to the States to wrestle. I don't know that. I'm sure there's probably some
I think
bullshit
you do
involved.
because there's. I remember Taya Valkyrie, for instance. I don't know if you remember many moons ago, they had Bound for Glory in I want to say Aberdeen, somewhere in Canada. There's an Aberdeen in Ontario, is there? I'm not something like that. Either way, it was a Bound for Glory. It was in Canada, and they had Taya Valkyrie versus Rosemary booked. And even though Taya Valkyrie is Canadian, because obviously she has the correct credentials to work in the United States, but not Canada. She couldn't actually cross the border because if she did, she wouldn't be allowed to leave again because of the orders of her visa, her working permit. Similar to now how things are with the United States and Great Britain. If I can come over to the United States, providing I've got a temporary ESTA, not a visa. And what that is like a kind of part-time visa. It means that I can spend up to 60 days in the United States over the span of 2 years. However, if I wanted to actually come over to the United States and work and ply a trade, I would need to apply for a correct visa and permit. And what people don't realize is those are expensive. They cost money. Not only that, you have to apply through the state, the government, whatever it might be of that country. And this is the case in a lot of different countries, not everywhere, to be fair, which is why EU and being part of the EU, again, for people who might be listening who have any interest in Brexit, for instance, one of the big reasons why a lot of us actually didn't want to leave the EU is because of the freedom of movement and the ability to work in those. It's now tenfold more difficult if I want to say go to Spain and do an apprenticeship over there or something like that because of leaving the EU ultimately. So there's a lot of facets to it, not just get all these dirty poles out of my country, Britain first. Shut the fuck up. Those people fucking infuriate me. But yeah, ultimately, what people don't realize is it's fucking difficult. Speedball, Mike Bailey, for instance, I know he has spoken numerous times on his social media about how difficult. He even mentioned, I remember, an indie show for Revolution Pro Wrestling over here about, because of obviously being Canadian, it's difficult to kind of work here or there. And, I believe there are PWG shows he had to miss out on, or he couldn't attend one of the bowlers because of work permit issues. And that's just a microcosm of what these people have to. And, I love women's wrestling. Alexia Nicole is not just beautiful, insanely talented, as is, and by the way, just so we're being completely gender neutral, Joshua Alexander is fucking beautiful. Like, he's man crush. There's so many talented, freaking insanely talented people. I look at Joshua Alexander, and I immediately think, holy shit, I want to see him wrestle every single one of the big British indie talents right now. I'd love to see him come over here and tear it up with guys like Jordan Side. It'd be fucking sick. But of course, that's difficult. It's not easy to track. And ultimately, with a pandemic on, think about it. If they were restricted to, let's say, being generous, a tenth of the opportunities that an American wrestler was, and that's being generous. Think how bad that is. And that's before the pandemic. Think how bad that is now in a pandemic. If it was a tenth of the opportunities of anyone else beforehand, and then you shut down the borders and say, sorry, no entertainment, no real work. You either work from home or you work in a COVID regulated office, which is essentially what we're doing over here. I'm not sure the ins and outs of Canada. Obviously, I leave that up to Kyle. He's in the know more than I am. But ultimately, that leaves nothing or next to nothing. And, you know, Josh Alexander is very lucky. He's one of the lucky ones. And the fact that he's still willing to go on social media, irregardless of the fact that he kind of has his own opportunity and he has a place to work in Impact and he has a guaranteed paycheck, the fact that he's still willing to go on Twitter, social media and say to people, yeah, this is fucked up and we don't get opportunities and I'm going to speak out and I represent this whole fucking scene. That speaks volumes not only about how incredible a human being he is and everyone who around him who works, especially Gabriel Fuerza, who deserves a lot of love and appreciation for sticking his neck out, because let's be honest, social media is full of cretins who always have a fucking shitty on about something and get offended about everything. Alexia Nicole, for instance, I saw some of her replies. Disgraceful. Like wrestling fans who know nothing about how difficult it is. I cannot express to you how difficult it was for a fat piece of shit like me just to train and get a very fleeting experience. I worked, 5 or 6 matches for 3 or 4 different companies. And for me, that was a massive dream come true. And for these people, that's magnified 1,000 times. And these are people who have put in tenfold the years and the effort that I ever could dream of putting in. And when I think how difficult it is just to do an international, you know, or work a 10-minute match, or, you know, I got to work a 15-minute match with a guy called Freak Show. Amazing wrestler. Love this guy. Huge fan of his. And to this day, definitely the best match I ever had. And I think about what went into that and how much he looked after me. To put all that responsibility on someone in the Canadian scene and not have even an ounce of respect and understanding for how difficult that is, you are a fucking idiot if you think otherwise. If you think they're just having a little jolly and having a little moan, you try being in that scenario. And it's very easy for people to say, yeah, well, get a real job. Where are the jobs? Where are the fucking jobs? This doesn't just represent Canada. This is the world right now. For instance, I can't get a job. I lost my job. You know, I was made redundant in my last one. There are no job opportunities. There's nothing here. And ultimately, if companies aren't going to fucking be paying people to come in to work, they're sure as hell not going to pay new people to come in and start a new job. It's fucking awful around the world. And to say to these Canadian wrestlers who are some of the best in the world at what they do, yeah, we just think you're having a whinge, be quiet. Fuck you. Fuck you. Try and put yourself into that position. Try and understand how difficult that would be. I can tell you something as my final point. It's not fucking easy. It's not fucking plausible. And frankly, these people are still, the majority of which I know are probably still working full-time jobs and trying to keep their dreams alive, when frankly, most of authority in this world right now has no choice but to step on the necks of their dreams until we can get back to a sense of normality.
I mean, I wish I'd gone to Josh Alexander School when it was still open. I would have loved to learn under this guy, but hearing these people say how difficult it is, especially Josh Alexander, who's done it for like 16 years, does it kind of shy me away from wanting to ever try it? A little. It does, because you look at AEW, for example, and I know you've talked about it before and how it's not always the best, but they always are bringing people in just to give them a trial run, just to see what they can do. When the borders open up, why not give some of these Canadian guys a chance? That if you think it doesn't work out, fine, whatever. But they need the exposure, they need the chance, and the fact that they aren't getting them is, I don't know, I've said it 100 times, but I can't find other words to say it other than insulting, because I love being a Canadian wrestling fan. I love going to my Destiny shows. I love going to the A1 shows, the shows in a place called Barrie, which is about 4 hours north of me. I've driven 5.5, 6 hours to our version of Windsor, because I know you guys have one, but I've driven there just to watch Josh Alexander and Holden Albright. I mean, it also had Tommy Dreamer, and you know, you're gonna go meet Tommy Dreamer. But I still drove.
Who's the Indiana Rock? What's his name? The Indiana Jones guy.
Oh, Stone Rockwell.
Is he Canadian?
Yep.
Why is he not getting mentioned? He's fucking. I love that guy. By the way, man crush, like, he's well fit.
I think he's
Gorgeous.
in WWE in some capacity, like
Oh really?
because I saw him like at NXT and stuff. But yeah, I haven't seen Stone
he's another
Rockwell,
guy.
Adventurer.
Yeah, he is. He's amazing. He's got that gimmick nailed on as well. I love him. He's someone insane. And that's the thing. A Canadian came up with that gimmick. No one else before him thought, do you know what? I could be the adventurer. I could be the Indiana Jones of professional wrestling. It sounds so simple on paper, but it requires a great deal of creative mindset to be able to pull that off. And when you mention AEW and AEW, I've got to be honest, I'm kind of tired. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy for all these people, but I'm kind of tired of seeing the same bullshit format every week from AEW. Here's AEW Dark. Here's our regulars. Here's them jobbing out a shitload of guys who may have great potential. And pretty much all of them, bar a small fraction, are American. They are. And I understand why that is, especially in the COVID-19 era, because ultimately you're not going to try and cheat the system, break the law. And, you know, Alexia Nicole, for instance, mentioned that in her tweets. Some of these people have risked going over the border. Please check out The Art of Wrestling with Colt Cabana, even if you're not a big fan of his. Some of his previous podcasts years ago, he spoke to guys like Truth Martini, you know, a guy who worked in Ring of Honor, and a multitude of other guys who have had to kind of hide in trunks and try and break, you know, fucking customs to get over the border into Canada. It's a proper border, ladies and gentlemen. It's not like when I drive to Scotland and I might see some geezer in a kilt and a fucking sheep, and I'll be like, "You're right, lads." He'll be like, "Hey, nice to meet you, lad." Like that's all you're gonna get as a fucking, you know, say hello crossing the border, because there's no fucking border patrol there. Nobody's stopping. Hey, fucking fuck off, you bastards. Like they should do, really, ultimately, with the way the English act. But, you know, and the same with Wales. I can drive into Wales and it costs me like £5 to go over the bridge. That's it. And you're in. I don't think you even pay to get in. I think you just pay to get out. It's like Wales are trying to hold us in there. But I cannot stress to you enough. This is a proper border.
I've been to the American border. It's like you don't fuck with border control.
Yeah, no, you don't.
You don't. Like I took my sister down. She had a boyfriend in the States. It's a whole thing. But I was taking her down to meet him and then coming back. And one part of me, he's like, "So what's your purpose for coming down?" Part of me wanted to go, you know, I'm just taking my sister down to see her boyfriend. And then the other part of me said, you know, just taking a trip, because I thought maybe they think I'm doing some sort of weird human trafficking. You don't make that joke at border control, because then you don't go
out of
anywhere.
car, please, sir.
Yeah, we need to search the car, please.
Cavity search, isn't it, baby? Yeah, no, it's exactly the same as when you're in the airport. And trust me, look at me, right?
Don't fuck with air control either, dude.
Imagine how much fun I have at the airport. So, you know, I still remember landing in Chicago when I went to Washington, and they were like, "Who are you?" I was like, you know, and I showed them my passport. For anyone who knows my real name, it's a very heavy Egyptian name. And, you know, I showed them it, and they were like, "Okay, cool. Step aside, please." And they go through this process. Sign this, please. Register this. And I had a very beautiful young woman who was a, you know, kind of a customs agent of sorts. And she did not have a sense of humor. And why would she? Because she's armed as well. And she's just like, "What's your nature of business?" I was like, "Well, I'm over here to see wrestling." And she just looked at me. So she went, "Are you a wrestler?" I was like, "Well, I'm training to be one, yes." Great. It's like, Jesus, like the icy nature of it, because these people don't have time to have a sense of humor. Because ultimately, there are too many people that are very fucking dangerous who could make their life really fucking difficult. So they haven't got time to make jokes. And I'm sure they want to go home and make a joke. And I'm sure at a push, she would probably love to smile and laugh in her job, but it's fucking difficult. And they're under a lot of stress. And I can tell you for a fact that those people are horrendously underpaid as well. And all of this factors in. And the reason I mention all of this is because this is what a Canadian wrestler is going to have to go through on a day-to-day basis just to work for, let's be honest, peanuts, the old hot dog and handshake. And that's another thing in our business that needs to fuck off. You need to start paying everybody, regardless if they're a trainee or not. They must have some form of compensation for what they're doing. Not, yeah, well, you're getting exposure, innit? Exposure doesn't buy the milk, it doesn't buy the groceries, it doesn't pay the fucking bills. Exposure tastes great when I'm fucking impoverished. Fuck off. If you're a professional company, you goddamn well pay people to work for you. Doesn't matter if you're a pokey little British indie or a massive conglomerate like WWE or AEW, you fucking well pay everybody who is on your dime, because ultimately they're doing work for you, not the other way around. Exposure doesn't pay jack shit, and Canada is the finest example of that. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Any closing words, Mr. Wilkinson?
No, I mean, I can't be here all night just defending and complaining about it. So
we might have to go live, but you can.
Yeah, really. No, just it's another one of those. Just at this point, all I can really do is plead, give these guys and girls a chance. We are such a passionate community of wrestlers, wrestling fans, promoters. Like George Iceman of Destiny is an incredible guy. Incredible guy. Always, whenever I'm there, whenever regulars are there, he comes up, like shakes your hand, says thanks for coming, how are you? And you can sit there and talk to the guy. We need these people to be, like they've already said, we need the exposure. We need them. They don't need to prove themselves. They've done that already. They just need the chance.
Yeah, as a final point before we wrap things up, here's a few social media handles. If you are watching this, if you don't already follow them, please follow them at Fuerza Estupapi. That's FUERZAESTUPAPI on Twitter. That's, of course, Gabriel Fuerza. You can follow him quite easily, and frankly, there's no excuse why you shouldn't be able to. Joshua Alexander is, of course, at walking_weapon. You can find Ethan Page, or legal Ethan Page. He's available. It's Alexia Nicole at It's Alexia Nicole. She's also available on social media. Speedball Mike Bailey is at Speedball Bailey. Bailey is spelled Bailey. There is a multitude of people. If you want more, please ask, and I will happily share them all. All those people have cartels, or not literal cartels, obviously big cartel shops. They have a multitude of different merch that might be available. Please check out prowrestlingtees.com, not for our stuff, for their stuff, because ultimately they are all available. The majority of them have shops on there, and that might be their biggest source of income. And I know people might say, oh yeah, well, I'm having it tough too. Yeah, but if you've got a full-time job, or you've got it pretty cushy, and you're not living out your fucking car just for a hot dog and a handshake, then maybe you don't truly understand how difficult it is to be a wrestler. I am never, ever, ever, especially as an independent artist myself, who literally relies solely on the income of my commissions right now to live. I understand how difficult that is. I know how fucking tough that is to live that life. And I've been living it for the last 2 years, because ultimately I believe in myself. And that's what these people have to do. And even I'm probably afforded more opportunities than they will get. And they are tenfold the wrestlers in terms of looks and work ethic than I'll ever be. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and act as if I'm some sort of New Japan undergraduate or anything like that. No, just some fat guy who worked incredibly hard at training and was luckily afforded a few opportunities solely because I stuck my neck in the right doors. And that's ultimately what wrestling is about. I'll be honest with you. I never got booked because I was a great wrestler. I got booked because people were like, you're that guy from the podcast. Do you want to wrestle? That's pretty much why. And I'm not going to sit, but I earned those opportunities, I like to think. And I worked hard for those in training too. It's a difficult fucking life for all of us. So try and have a bit of compassion. That's pretty much it for the State of Wrestling Address. We'll leave it there. Carl Wilkinson, thank you very much for joining me to discuss all of the week's wrestling topics. Hopefully Carl will be back next week. Kind of depends whether he can be asked to, turn up for work, innit?
Hey, better me than Miller.
That's very, very true. Fuck off, Miller. No, I'm kidding. Nice. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Look at Miller lording over us with his real job. What a cretin. He works for Amazon as well. So, he's part of the corporation now. He's scum.
Like a Jeff Bezos' dick.
Yeah, but he's not an independent contractor, is he? Fuck you, Miller. Oh, dear. Leave us a comment below if you did watch this, Miller, you cretin. But yeah, ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to support your local independent promotions as always. Thank you very much for watching. We're very close to 200 subscribers. When we hit 200 subscribers, I will be giving away some free merch, possibly a pop vinyl, possibly a t-shirt, maybe a free piece of wrestling art. Maybe you'd like me to paint or draw you as somebody. There you go. There's an example, just so you guys have an idea of what my art is all about. And obviously you can check me out on social media. The links are available in the YouTube descriptions. Carl Wilkinson has a Twitter. I believe it's still at xcarl_Wilkinson, because he's an edgelord. So please check him out on
Instagram. I think
Instagram as well.
I think that, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're the same. Though the Instagram is private, but You guys are
It
cool.
kind of has to be nowadays. People are so cretinous. Honestly,
True.
sometimes I feel like just deleting it all. We have a WrestlePlug Facebook page, Twitter account, Instagram. It's all at WrestlePlug. You can find us very easily. Please continue to interact with our content. But most importantly, we're really striving hard to provide free and entertaining content on our YouTube channel. All you got to do is click subscribe. That's it. And then if you're feeling extra frisky, you can click on the bell icon. That will give you a notification of all of our content going forward. And as a return for your loyalty and your kindness, we shall be giving away free stuff for every 100 subscribers. So spread the word. Let your friends know. That's your job from the WrestlePlug for the week. Find one person that you think, hey, you might like listening to this insanely fat Arab guy on YouTube, and you might like his diabetic friend Carl Wilkinson. So check us out. We are the Commonwealth, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be a tag team coming to you one day. I will join you whenever Alexander decides that he wants to start training people again, you know, when COVID lifts. I would give honestly anything, and I'd be more than happy to sell what I have to travel to Canada just to train under his tutelage, not even to become a wrestler, just because the opportunity to work and listen to somebody like that is so important. From myself, Aaron Nix, and from Carl Wilkinson, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll catch you very soon for more content from the WrestlePlug.